Let's discuss about what is Python and what can Python do for us and why organizations are preferring Python. Let's take a look at the very first point. The very first point is Python is an interpreted object-oriented language and it's a high-level programming language. Now let's try to understand what is an interpreted programming language. So Python is processed in C and C++. So C and C++ are the programming languages which process the Python code in the backend. So the code that you write in Python is not the C or C++ code. What you write in Python is the Python code. However, in the backend, it would go ahead and process the C and C++ code. So Python is not a computer language, it is an interpreted language. So the language that you write is not directly interpreted by the computer. It is first converted from the Python language to the C or C++, and then it is going to be interpreted by the computer. That is the reason why Python is an interpreted language. Now the second point that comes into the picture is the object-oriented language. Python is an object-oriented language, which means that whatever you create in Python gets created as an object. So for example, if you are creating an object which contains the customer's name, it gets created as an object. Python is not a procedure-oriented language. So there are two kinds of languages on the basis of the orientation. One is the object-oriented language, another one is the procedure-oriented language. Object-oriented languages are easy to understand, they are easy to code. Why they are easy to code? Because you don't have to create procedures for that. And as the name suggests, for the procedure-oriented language, you have to create the procedure for each of the tasks that you are completing. Now let's try to understand the basic difference between object-oriented and procedure-oriented. So for example, let's try to understand with an example. So if you are trying to add up two values in a procedure-oriented language, you will have to create a procedure for that, which means you will create a procedure which sums up the two values, let's say 7 and 6, so that you get 13 as an output. So you have to create a procedure for that. However, in object-oriented language, a procedure would already be created. So for example, in Python, you will have a function by the name of sum, and which you can use straight away and deploy that and write your code. So you don't have to create a procedure which is by the name of, let's say, sum function is already available in Python. That's the reason why Python is a object-oriented language. It's not a procedure-oriented language. And it is easy to understand the object-oriented language. It is easy to code and it is easy to comprehend. So you don't need any programming language background to learn the Python, because it's an easy language. And because of these features, because of the object-oriented and the interpreted language, because of these functions in Python, because of these attributes in a Python language, it is known as high-level programming language. Now one point to note here, if you don't understand everything in this particular video, don't worry about that, as we will cover the Python programming in the upcoming videos. You will have a very good idea. Now let's talk about the second point, which is Python can be used for data science and machine learning for solving complex business statistics related problems, and Python can be used for processing the structured data. Now let's try to understand what is a structured data. Structured data is a data which is in form of tables. So in case you are creating any table which contains the employee records, which contains a record for a telecom company, that how many customers are there in telecom company, what kind of plans that they have on their mobile phones. And in case you are creating a separate tables for a banking organization, you would create a table which contains the customer information, and next to that you would have information like how many credit cards do a customer has with your bank, and what is the balance that he maintains on his credit card, what is the spending that he does on his credit card, and how frequently he makes the payment on his credit card. Does he avail any equated monthly installments on the credit card? Does he avail any extension on the paying of the bills of the credit card, and so on. So all this information which is in form of tables is called a structured data. Now let's talk about the point number 2. Python can be used for processing the structured data, as I have covered very briefly in my previous video. So for example, a telecom company would be interested in knowing that how many customers are churning. So churning means customer taking portability of their mobile phone number from one service provider to another because they are getting benefits in the other service providers. So telecom company face a lot of business challenge in regards to customers moving from one telecom provider to another. And so is the case with the electricity providers in some of the European companies. So it's important for the organization to know that what are the factors which influence a particular customer moving from one telecom provider to another, because the organizations, telecom companies would really like to hold on to those customers. It would really like to retain those customers. The telecom company would really want to understand that what is the probability that a particular customer who has taken a data plan with us for 2 GB download per day, what is the probability that that particular customer is going to churn with our telecom company and going to move on to some other company. So all these statistical algorithm which predicts the probability, and there's a lot of complex statistics and programming that goes behind it, which we will be learning in this course. All of this can be done in the structured data with the help of Python. So Python can process the structured data and provide statistical solutions with decision science and the machine learning algorithms. Let's cover the third point now. Python is used for application development, website development, and creating computer games.